All right, Trevor, indeed, one of the big questions we're asking tonight is how safe is your building? We are live from the Greenhouse Mall. As you remember, last week, you did not get a chance to do this introduction because at that time you were across the road where that fire was happening. A fire had set off at the Malik Heights. But we can also expand this discussion even further, Trevor, and ask how safe is your county? How safe is Kenya when it comes to disaster preparedness, risk management? Now, a 2016 study showed that 70% of the disasters that happen in this country are as a result of water or the weather. But the 30%, different compositions, road accidents, we also have buildings collapsing and other factors as well. How prepared are we as a country? What do we have right? What are the challenges? That's what we want to get to at this time. We've got the panel on standby, and let me introduce them to you. From my far right, we have Pius Masai, a disaster and emergency specialist. Some of you may remember him for a previous hat he used to wear as a former Deputy Director, National Disaster Management Unit. Pius, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us. Next to him is Ayaz Manji, who is the Director, Programs and Operations, Kenya Red Cross Society. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
The next man probably needs little or no introduction. Isaac Mwaura, nominated Senator. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And we also have Anne Mwendwa, a Chief Officer for Disaster. Anne Mwenda, I beg your pardon, Chief Officer, Disaster, Nairobi County. Welcome as well. We have an urban planner with us, Constant Cap, who I'll be introducing to you in just a bit. But we want to get into this discussion, and a bit later on, the audience will also be able to ask their questions. But Anne, let me start with you. You've watched that story, and some of the concerns that have come up for Nairobi County before we take a look at Kenya as a whole is the situation with Malik Heights, just behind us, where access to some extent was impeded. We've also had issues when it comes to accessing locations in Gikomba, locations in Toy Market as well, where the firefighters say access was simply the challenge. Is this something the county is looking at proactively? Do you do service? Do you know right now the hardest places to access in Nairobi, for example?
Thank you, Wahiga. What I would like to say is, first and foremost, let's thank His Excellency, the Governor of Nairobi, for getting an initiative to separate the Nairobi Inspectorate with disaster management.
Okay.
So as we speak now, we have disaster management as a sector by itself, that we are able now to move from, as you know, we have 4 phases of disaster management. We have the preparedness phase, we have the mitigation, we have the response and the recovery. So what happens is, like when we have a fire, what we need to look at is a mitigation phase. How prepared are we in terms of capacity building, training of our staff, which I can say in Nairobi County, we are really doing good.
So do you have an accurate assessment of the whole county? Do you know where are the difficult areas to access?
Yes, we do. And what we are doing, we are working with the national government to make sure that we put, number one, accessibility of the roads in Nairobi, especially in the informal settlement, is a challenge. I can see it's a challenge.
Okay.
But what we are doing is that we are working with the national government to make sure that we have a unified structures in the informal settlements that will have access roads, especially for fire engines to be able to penetrate to those informal settlements.
Do you have timelines on the promises that you're giving us now?
Yes, we have. And if you can see, we've started maybe with the riparian areas. You've seen buildings coming down, buildings that are blocking maybe the ways, buildings that are diverting rivers, the natural rivers. Mm-hmm. So I can confidently say by end of this year, things are changing.
Things are changing.
Yes.
I have lots of questions for you, but I also have other panelists I need to get to. Honorable Mwaura, once again, thank you for joining us. Where would you say the country is right now in terms of disaster and risk management laws and policies? Because the 2016 study felt that Kenya was still weak in that area.
Yes, we do need to do quite a bit. There has been progress in terms of trying to see to it that people are more responsive at the administrative level. But in terms of the law, I see ourselves a little bit disjointed. And that is why we came up with a disaster management bill that we have just passed in the Senate to try to help coordinate the efforts and also to mainstream issues of disaster risk reduction within the body politic of government. We've seen a situation where sometimes when there are disasters, the response from government is a little bit slow. But you'll agree with me. You are seeing some kind of improvement. Of course, we can do more, and that is why we would want to see that
to you, what stands out as improvement? Give us specific examples. Some may say that they are not seeing an improvement.
No. Actually, today, for example, when there's a disaster, people actually, the response is quicker. You will find their fire, if there's fire, you will find there either fire engines going to that place. Before, you'll find them stationed somewhere with no water, with no driver, broken down. So there is a way in which, we are learning how to do that. If you remember, for example, the way in which we had a fire at the airport, for example, the way we were able to quickly, come, together, even shift the arrival place and all of that, there's some level of improvement. But certainly, we can do better with proper laws.
Okay. Yes. I'll come back to you because I know that there are some laws that have gotten stuck with the legislators, and I want to find out more from you about that. But Ayaz, let me bring you in as well. Red Cross, you have a presence across the country. Do you agree with him that our disaster response as a country is overall better now, or do you have concerns?
No, I think let's be fair and let's give credit where credit is due. I think yes. I've been at Kenya Red Cross 12 years now. I think we have evolved. We are moving slowly in the right direction, for sure. Like the senator has just said, in my experience, I've been a Kenyan my whole life. You would have heard of no engine, having no fuel, no water. At least today they are there. I think our coordination has really improved. If you go back to Westgate, for instance, Westgate is when we first realized as a country our coordination mechanism was very poor. I think that time we worked with ourselves, Pius was involved as well. We worked on what we call a mass casualty incident protocol, on how different actors would come, the Kenya Police, the Navy, the Air Force, the ambulance services, ourselves. And this has consistently gotten better. The last time when we talked of Dusit, for instance, that was a much better response than what we had in Westgate. So I can say as a country we're learning. We can all do better, I agree, even ourselves included as Kenya Red Cross. And I think we're heading in the right direction. So credit where credit is due.
Credit where credit is due.
Yes.
Pas, let me bring you in. And I've referenced two studies. One in 2016 that talked about 70% of the disasters are water and weather-driven. But there's a study that was funded by the UK, the UK's Department for International Development, that looked at disaster preparedness in this country. That study, the data revealed that Kenya lacks a culture of preparedness. It's not just about funds. A culture of preparedness, always ready. What has been your observation from the time you spent in this particular field? Do you agree with those findings?
Thank you, Kaika. And what I can say is that issues of disaster and emergency management is about all of us responsibility. I can support my colleagues by saying that we have walked a long journey from where we started. We had a lot of problems so far, but at this time, actually, there is a lot of improvement. As you have heard from my colleagues, most of the counties have legislation, and I've heard from the Honorable Maura that the bill of disaster management has just passed the Senate. Actually, there is a lot of improvement in terms of the way we have responded to emergencies and disasters. As you know, that there is a shared responsibility between the national and county governments, and then it goes back to all of us. Ask yourself, like yourself, Kaiga, yourself, from the time you started participating, have you improved yourself? So it's important that everyone, even the participants who are here, need to ask themselves, have you improved? Because
but Pius, to be fair, there are those who are tasked with driving the agenda of disaster preparedness in this country, and that's why I've put you here in front, and the audience is the audience.
It's all of us. Don't point fingers anywhere, because if you say those people, then you are forgetting yourself, because like issues of ensuring that everything is done properly, I'm telling Kenyans, task your MCAs, senators, governors, you elected them. What are they doing? Because you need to ask them what plans they have for you. Because disasters in this country, they're different. They vary from, this country has different counties. Mm-hmm. Every country is dynamic and is important, has different hazards affecting it as a county.
Okay.
So it's a responsibility of each and every person. So the government has and I've seen the government has done a lot, in fact, but there is also a responsibility on individuals and all the levels, as I've said, mentioned already, because it's about all of us responsibility.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Pastor, and I'll get more from you. I want to bring in Constant Cap before I talk to, before Mashirima starts taking the questions. It's very rare when you have a panel almost all in agreement, but that's the situation today. But let's see if the audience agrees with what the panel had to say. Constant, let's bring us back to what happened across the road last week, Malik Heights, that fire. I believe you were following it possibly on Citizen TV, I hope on Citizen TV, and you were tweeting some questions, some thoughts. Do you mind sharing some of them? What were your thoughts as you watched the way that fire was being dealt with?
Thank you very much. And yes, I was watching it on Citizen TV. I raised a few questions that were in line with the Physical Planning Act, because the Physical Planning Act covers how buildings should be organized within a particular plot. How one area that's very clear on the Physical Planning Act is what we call the building line, which means that a building should be a certain distance from the road. And we've seen now almost open-ended abuse of the Physical Planning Act, where people are literally building right at their fence. Okay, when we have a 6 to 15 meter road, we should have a building to be about 6 meters from the road, and when it's more than 15 meters, it should be 9 meters from the road.
And you wondered if that was the situation at that building. Now, when we look at
that building, you'll notice that the car park starts at the fence. Yet the rest of the building that is occupied is about 6 meters. So there's this thing that has come up that we are calling extended basement, that I've seen being given approvals. And we would like to read, it's one of the questions that I've been asking is, isn't that extended basement part of a building? There are some places where buildings, I'll give an example, like there's a road, there's Ole Shapara Avenue in South Sea, where all the buildings now are along the fence, and many other places. We also have other parts in the city where we have back-to-back buildings right next to each other, which is not in accordance to the Physical Planning Act. So in this case, the question was about this particular car park, and we could see that there was limited access for the fire engines to be able to come close to where the fire was, even within the plot itself, because it was being kept back. Fine, there was the issue of the road that we saw in the clip earlier on, and then there was this extended parking that goes up one floor, and then we're seeing more and more of that coming up, which makes it a bit difficult for people to access. Another issue, which maybe can be raised still covers this, but comes up quite important, is the issue of hydrants. We heard that the county had sent 4 fire engines and 2 Bowsers. How long will those last? And do we have ready hydrants along our densified areas ready to refill these particular fire engines and Bowsers?
Okay, those are 2 very important questions. Before Mashirima goes around to get other questions, Madam Ann, I think you can take those 2. Extended parking, is that a concern for you? Bearing in mind there are the laws that stipulate what should, or how, the kind of distance a building should have from the road. But in addition, hydrants, how many do we have in the city? How well are they serviced or maintained, and so forth?
Okay, let me start with the first question. What I would say about Malik building, it's still under investigation. So we need to get the report. Then maybe I'll be able to answer that. But
is that one of the issues that will be looked at? Whether the building is partly on the road, the extended basement?
Yes, that's what I'm looking into during our investigation phase. Then the water hydrants, we have 5,044 fire hydrants in Nairobi County, in which most of as you can see, we have a lot of construction of roads in Nairobi, which is what I can say, the presidents and maybe His Excellency, the Governor Sonko, having good roads infrastructure. So what is happening is that we've taken up with the roads department, because you find that most contractors are messing up with the water hydrants. But we are not taking that lightly. What you are doing is that after the roads are done, we are going to have the water hydrants done again. But now that does not tell us that we'll have a fire engine without water. So we've taken an initiative that every time we have a fire, the fire is always followed by an ambulance and a water boozer from Nairobi Water.
To back up the fire
engine. So there is no one time that we'll have a fire engine not having water. Okay. So that's out of the question.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Mashirima?
Mbali na hilo swala, mbali na hilo swala kuhusiana na magari ya mazima moto kuwa na maji, kuna swala lingine hapa ambalo Juliana anataka kuligusia.
Ninataka kuuliza hiyo ameguzia umeguzia hiyo ya hydrants, because there are some which have been encroached. Kuna kioski zimejengwa ama duka zimejengwa juu ya hizo water points, na unakuta ako na license ya hiyo duka yake lakini ako juu ya water point. I thought you had a mapping of all this and you have the authority to remove these illegal constructions or structures. Na ingine, kuna manyumba imejengwa, tuko na soko ya Toi, mimi natoka Toi Market. Moigas ilichomeka last year, Toi Market imechomeka March. Kuna vile tunaweza jengewa sub fire stations kama pahali wamejenga water and sewage hapo Makina Market, Makina DC hapo mnaweza kutuwekea sub fire station. Ukienda upande wa Joseph Kang'ethe, hiyo ya kwa DC pale inaweza kucater for Yaya Center, Malik and this area.
Asante, nadhani ameshika.
Mbili ama tatu hivi.
Asante. We can get two reactions, one from you and anyone else who wants to weigh in on this. Go ahead, briefly please.
Thank you so much. That's a very good question. I would like to say that we are in the 15 months since Governor Sonko took office, but I want to tell Nairobians that it's time for them to smile, because we are decentralizing services to the 17 sub-counties. We have already started Waithaka Fire Station. We have Kangundo Road. We have Ruaraka Fire Station. And we have Tomboya that has been in existence. We have industrial area.
I think she wants to know, what are you going to do about those who've built on top of water points?
Yes, I was trying to answer the second question, then I come back to the first one. So what I'm trying to say is by the end of June, we are recruiting firemen and women, 200 of them, and 50 drivers. So then we'll have services that will go down to Wanjiku. So the question of we have a fire in Kawangware, then you find a fire engine is coming from Tomboya, that will be an issue, because now we'll have Waithaka that will be next to Kawangware to cater for that. And I think that's a milestone for Nairobi. As you remember, the first fire station we did was in 1907, during the colonial time. So now we are doing 3 and 4 more fire stations. And maybe by 3-4 years, we'll have more. Because we need to decentralize services to Mwananchi. Yes, so in the issue of those who have built on top of fire hydrants.
And they have licenses for their businesses.
What we've done is that we've mapped out where we have the water hydrants. That's point number 1. And we are ongoing to map out. So what we are doing is that, and you have seen it on record, through His Excellency the Governor, that if you have built on top of any drainage, on top of any water hydrant, that building is going to come down. That is a promise that you are promising Nairobians. And this one, take it to the bank. If you have done any building on top of a drainage, on top of a water hydrant, we are going to put those buildings down.
So the ones that she has seen, how can she get that message to you?
Yes, now we need to get... How can you report
that
for those
who are watching?
Yes, we need to get information from the public. As Masai has said, that safety is a collective, it's a collective responsibility. It's not about Nairobi County. Whatever you see, let us know. Help us.
And how much? And within what time do you promise action?
Action advice. What I'll tell you is that we are in a marathon. I'll tell you that. Because His Excellency is not taking chance in anything to do with disasters. As you've seen before, even before he became the governor of Nairobi, he had the Sonko rescue team. So disaster is a passion in him. So that's something that you have to take seriously and act on it.
I think your point has come out quite strong. Anyone else want to comment before I get the next question? Go ahead, Pius.
Yeah, I have just additional comment to issue of urban planning. It is the responsibility of the developer to ensure that before you start construction, you follow the procedures. Issue of the accessibility, the distance required per everything they mentioned, my friend, it's important that owners of building need to take responsibility, because before you start construction, there are various steps you need to follow, and from the site location up to the construction. So issue of accessibility, issue of the distance that needs to be required, it's important that those procedures, when they are followed clearly, people must take responsibility. And it's important that safety audit must be done to every building. And I think, Madam, said very well that the governor of Nairobi is serious in terms of what he's doing in the preparedness. It's necessary that safety audit be conducted, and the owners of the building have a responsibility to initiate safety audit themselves, to ensure that they have safety building, they have accessibility everywhere.
Okay, okay, go ahead. Let's now get some more questions from Mashirima.
Na nilikuwa nataka kuchukua swali lingine kuhusiana na moto wa Gikomba, lakini kuna swala ambalo Pius hapo amelitaja, nadhani itakuwa vizuri liweze kujibiwa sasa hivi. Jina lako mimi na swali lako kuhusiana na masuala ya majengo.
Kwa majina naitwa Judith Narocho. Nilikuwa kwa hiyo nyumba yenye ilianguka pale Huruma, na nilikuwa tunauliza serikali yetu county Nairobi. Wakati nyumba hiyo ilianguka iliua watu wengi sana, na baada ya hiyo nyumba kuanguka tena kuna manyumba mengi zimeanguka na zikaua watu, na mlisema ya kwamba mtakuja kuangalia nyumba zile zenye zilijengwa vibaya alafu ziangushwe. Na sasa si kutoka hapo hivyo mpaka leo hizo nyumba zenye ziliwekwa X bado ziko mpaka leo, hazijaiangushwa. Sasa nauliza swali langu ni kwenye serikali ya kwamba mnangoja tena nyumba ikuje ianguke iue watu ndio mkuje tena mwanze kuweka X kwa manyumba zingine?
Wahiga,
ungependa kujibu hiyo swali?
Asante sana. Ile ningetaka kusema about kuhusiana hiyo nyumba ya Huruma ni kwamba zile nyumba ambazo zimewekwa X zinafaa kuangushwa. You know, as Nairobi County we work with multi-agencies. Tuko na NEMA, tuko na Nairobi, so we are in consultations on how to bring those buildings down. Now putting
how long is the consultation taking?
The consultation, we're in process. I cannot be specific, but we're in consultations because, you know, for you to bring a building down, there are various factors you need to consider. Number one, the population of that area, if there is any occupancy in that building. But what you are telling Kenyans is, if you've seen a building that has been marked for demolition, think about your safety first. Why would you go and rent that house and you can see it's a building that is not safe for you? So what you're telling Nairobians and Kenyans at large, think about your safety first, because we have processes that we follow. We cannot just wake up one morning, somebody has his title deed, he has everything, then you come and bring your building down. So you have to consult with other agencies before we take any actions. But to things to do with safety, we take them with a lot of importance.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mashirima.
Nadhani kabla ya kupata majibu zaidi, manake hilo ni swali ambalo wengine watasema halijajibiwa kikamilifu. Manake ukisema kuwa kuna uchunguzi ambao unafanywa, kuna masuala mbalimbali lazima yaangaliwe. Ni kuanzia mwaka wa 2015 ambapo na mwaka wa 2016 kila mwaka kuna jumba linaporomoka. Mbona haya majengo hayaangushwi? Tunapumzika kidogo, tutarejea hivi punde.